Hola a todos, soy Mike. En este video vamos a aprender a hacer el sonido de la R en español. Hi everybody, this is Mike. In this video, we're going to learn how to make the sound of the R in Spanish. The sound of the letter R in Spanish is kind of difficult because it is way different than the sound we make for the letter R in English. Words like car, try, red, rum, river, that are, if you think carefully, the way you put your tongue, you move your mouth, everything gives that sound of the R, which is different than the way we make the sound of the R in Spanish. In Spanish, we have two different sounds for the letter R. We have the single tap R and the strong R, or the R with the rolling tongue, right? How can we make the difference in between those sounds? Let's start by learning that. The single tap R is basically the R when it's in between two vowel sounds. That's it. Words like cara, pera, tiro, corazón. The letter R is in between two vowel sounds and sounds the single tapped R. Ere, ere, ere. Pera, cara, caro, tiro, corazón, mora, loro, pero. And we also find that sound when the letter R is preceded by a consonant. So in words like abrazo, the letter R, it's preceded by the consonant B, and we say abrazo, right? It's the single tap R. I'm sorry. Brazo, crecer, crecer, we have the letter R preceded by the C, crecer, frecuencia, droga, I already said brazo, gracias, trabajo, precio. We have the letter R preceded by a consonant sound, and we use the single tap R sound. Brazo, crecer, precio, trozo, tramo. So those are the two instances in which we find the single tap R sound in Spanish. When do we have the strong R in Spanish? Every time a word in Spanish starts with the letter R, we use the strong sound, the rolling tone. So words like rocío, ramo, reto, río, rubio. Those words start with R, and we use the strong R sound, the rolling tone sound for those words. Every time you find a word in Spanish that starts with the letter R, we always use the strong R sound. Always. We don't say rubio, rojo. No, we say rojo, rubio, romo, roma, reto, real, ramo, rápido. We always use that word. And also, sometimes there are words that we have that strong sound in between vowel sounds. We can identify those words because we write two R's. Because as I said before, when we have the R in between two vowel sounds, we use the single tap R. But there are some words that we use the strong R, and we recognize that we identify those words because we write two R's. Words like carro, carro with a double R, as opposed to caro with a single R. Caro means expensive, carro means car, right? Pero, but, perro, dog. So those are the two sounds, the two different sounds that we have for the letter R in Spanish. Now, it is important to learn the sounds properly. The answer is yes and no. Why no? Um, Perfect kills good. I said that before. And sometimes we focus or we worry too much about sounding perfect, and we miss the natural part of the communication. The letter R gives trouble, even to native speakers. In my case, when I was a kid, I had trouble with the letter R, with the strong R. And sometimes I have issues. I say carro, 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 carro. Sometimes it's difficult when I use that word, that letter in words. But nonetheless, I try it, practice, and I can get a hold of that. And sometimes, because of certain things, we cannot make that sound. So if that's the case, we don't have to worry about that. So I can say, let's say, if I'm an English native speaker and I'm trying to use words with the letter R, I can say, esto es muy caro. I'm using the R, caro. Esto es muy caro. To say this is very expensive. Or I can say, este es mi carro. And I'm saying, this is my car. In context, I understand. And I can convey the idea properly, despite I'm not really pronouncing really well. It's pretty much like for us Spanish native speakers, when we try to say that the R sound in English, it's the same. People who say try instead of saying try. Correct instead of saying correct. Because when we see the double R, we say correct, like correct. So in English, we can say, that's correct. And yeah, you understand that. It sounds a little weird, but we're not native speakers. So, okay, it's context. We understand what he's trying to say. But we can try, practice, and learn how to pronounce correct and the R. It's the same. It goes from English to Spanish or Spanish to English. It's the same. So it's a matter of practice. So from that point of view, it's not really important if we cannot make those sounds. But it is important because we're learning another language and we want to sound the best we can. So the same thing that I did when I was learning, I am still learning English. I've been studying English for 40 years. And sometimes, let's say, sometimes there are sounds that are hard for me to pronounce correctly, like the E. So sometimes I say this exercise instead of saying this exercise, you see? But you understand. So if I'm focused on sounding better, of course it is important, and it is important to make the sound correctly. So we're going to learn how to make these differences in this video. So learning the R in Spanish can be challenging for some individuals, depending on abilities or maybe limitations. But nonetheless, we can get to make the sound and learn how to make the sound. First, some ideas that might help. Once we learn, because I'm going to teach that by the end of this video, once we learn how to make those sounds, the idea is to practice. So exercises and things that we can keep in mind in order to improve and practice on a daily basis. The tongue fluttering. So I can say the letter R, the single tap R, like the visited, and do this exercise. With the 5 vowels in Spanish. That's an exercise. We can do that because the single tap R is basically the R in English when we say visited, added, committed, madam. That's the single tap R. So that's the easiest sound because you already make that sound. You just need to focus. Okay, if I take the word visited and I take everything but the visited, that's the exercise. Then move with ra, like madam. Oh, let's try it with it. So that would be an interesting exercise to do while learning how to make the sounds. Let's have also a list of words. Words that use R in Spanish, both R's, the strong R and the single tap R, and practice those words on a daily basis. It's a regular practice, just repeating, perro, 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 carro, 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 corazón, 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 corazón. You can also find and look for tongue twisters in Spanish for the letter R, like R con R, cigarro, cigarra, blah, blah, blah. There are some interesting tongue twisters for practicing the letter R. Remember, once you have already learned the things that I'm going to teach you in a few minutes. And also listening and trying to mirror the sounds. So whenever you're listening to, let's say, watching a movie or listening to a podcast or something in Spanish where you can spot the sound of the R, either can be the single tap R or strong R, immediately try to listen and mirror. Oh, he said rápido, rápido, rápido. I'm trying to do rápido, rápido, rápido. So practice every day on a steady basis, on a daily basis. This sound is a sound that most likely you're not going to achieve in a couple hours of practicing. Not really. It is a hard sound to achieve, to control, to master. So with patience and practice and perseverance, you're going to get to it. Perhaps not in 1 hour, perhaps not in 1 day, perhaps not in a couple of weeks, but at least, I think maybe one month of a steady practice, keeping in mind what I'm going to show you in a few minutes about how to make the sound, and the steady practice and the perseverance and being persistent is going to help you in order to get to master this sound. So let's learn now how to make the sounds for the R. As I explained before, the single tap R is basically the R that you know in the pronunciation of the regular verbs ending in T or D sound. Visited, added, words like madame, right? So those R sounds, visited, 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 are pretty much easy. Visited, that sound is the single tap sound, the single tap R sound. Visited, ara, and the exercise that I gave you before, is a good way to get used to that sound. The strong R, which is the one that's difficult. Let's start by, because every single sound that we make depends on the vocal cords, the air, the flow of air that we use for the sounds, depend on the way we put our tongue inside our mouth, depends on the way we expand our mouth, the lips, the teeth, everything is involved in the sounds we make when we speak. So for the letter R, the strong R, let's try first and say love, 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 the word love, in English, of course. And let's focus on the letter L, the first sound of the word love. Love. Okay. Let's focus on that word, love. So, when we say love, how's the tongue? The tip of the tongue is pretty much pressing or resting against, the name of this is the ridge, the alveolar ridge. Is this part of behind the upper teeth here, the alveolar ridge. If you say love, you will note that the tip of the tongue is there, right? And if this is my tongue, the edge of the tongue is touching the edge of the molars, the upper molars. love, right? If this is my tongue, this part is there. Love, love, We're going to start with that sound. Let's practice this. Okay. If you notice your mouth, when you're making that sound, your mouth is like this. Like a pretty much relaxed, almost closed, like a little O, right? Love, love. Remember, how do you make the E sound? E. Check your mouth. E. Your mouth goes pretty much like open, wide open. E. And almost flat. E. Right? So we have the O and the E sound. Okay? Now let's try to do the O sound, but placing the mouth and the lips as if we were making the E sound. Okay. The next idea is very important. The rolling tongue sound is achieved by relaxing the tongue. The tongue must be relaxed, otherwise we are not going to be able to make the sound. So, as we place, as we make this sound, let's try to relax the tongue. As much as we can. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to blow air. Little blows. As we do that, check how the tongue starts to flutter. Tongue must be relaxed in its position, the position that we learn, and the mouth too. Now, the next step is let's try to do that stronger, in a stronger way. So we just not just blow air softly, but strongly. Then we are going to notice how the tongue starts to flutter. Important things. We have to keep the position of the but with the tongue totally relaxed in order to be able to get that flutter. And blowing the air with strength, strongly. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to try and make the vocal cord sound. As we do that. That's the rolling tongue sound. The rolling tongue sound. That's the sound. So let's recap real quick. First, the position of the tongue as we were saying love, right? Then the mouth as if we were saying E. Ooh. Then air, a flow of air with the tongue totally relaxed. And then stronger flow of air, blowing strongly and trying to make a vocal cord sound. That's the way how you make the R, the strong R sound. Okay, so yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it sounds weird. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it. Do not worry. Remember, first, it is important to learn how to make the sound, yes and no. So don't worry. If you really cannot make it, don't worry. That's not gonna be the end for you in Spanish. You can pronounce the regular R as you do in English. That's not gonna kill anyone. So do not worry about that. But let's give it a try. Let's give it a try because it is and it is not. It is important to learn how to pronounce correctly, and let's start practicing. Remember, patience, persistence, practice. We need to do that in a steady basis, on a daily basis, on a regular basis, and do that for as long as we need in order to get the sound. Most likely it's not going to happen in 1 hour. Do not worry about that. Do not get frustrated. But it's going to take a while, maybe a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, or worst case scenario, 1 or 2 months. But you need to practice. You need to practice. And remember, if you cannot do that, do not worry. It's not going to be the end for you in Spanish. So hopefully this has been helpful. Remember, we have learned how to do the R. There are sounds, both sounds for cara, carro, caro, carro, pero, perro. And the idea is for you to start practicing this exercise as much as you can in order to get to the sound. I really enjoy this process. I always enjoy trying to teach these things, and hopefully this is going to be helpful for you in your learning process. So looking forward to seeing you in another video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, you know what to do. Please share with your friends, groups, and social media. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel for updates on the new videos that we're posting on a weekly basis. So keep on learning, keep on watching the videos, and see you on the next video. Bye bye.